Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting Vobes show. I'm Richard Vobes. It's the 10th of May. Is it the 10th or is it the 11th? No, it's still the 10th. It's 8 o'clock and it's a Sunday night. Must remember, bins go out. You don't need to remember that. I need to remember that. I need to make sure that whatever bins it is, they go out this evening because they'll be out there in the morning, probably blown over and cast all over the road because it's quite windy here in jolly old the southern Englandness. How are you? Welcome to the show. Let's find out who's out there in the Vobosphere. We've got Barry Stevens, we've got Linda Kane, we've got Laura Riddle, we've got Days of Yore, we have got River Reed's Roboblocks. We have Ed Loud, we have Mike Stevens, we have Days of Yore, I said that, I know. Graham Roffey, we have Ramaboo 2, we have Ernie, we have Days of Yore, 3 times lucky. We have the lovely Judith, we have the lovely Julia, we have lovely grapefruit juice, grape juice without the fruit. We've got Days of Yore, 4th time Days of Yore. We have Mark G and Fiona Hammond and Ron Langley and many more coming along all the time. Lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. We do have videos in tonight's show. We also have the phone lines as well. We have had in the UK a message from the Prime Minister. We now know that we must stay alert, control the virus and save lives. What does it mean? What does it mean to stay alert? What are we alert for? What do we do if our alertness has been given raise to whatever it is that we're alerted to? What are we supposed to do when we are so alert and our alertion has been set? Can somebody explain that to me? I want to know. We're on a conditional plan now, ladies and gentlemen. You may not be aware of this. We are on a conditional plan, and the government have a traffic light system of 5 steps. COVID alert levels, he's called it. 1, whereas we no longer have the virus, and at 5, it's absolutely critical. We're currently at 4, which is lockdown, and we may be moving into 3 at the moment. There is this feeling that we're going into this transition, which is the stay alert, where we've got to protect more of the care homes and we've got to get the testing and the tracking sorted out. And that is it. We've got to make sure the 5 rules have been all applied for, that we can protect the NHS, that the death rate has gone down significantly, that the infection rate is going down significantly, that there is enough PPE all over the place, and that the R, this strange and famous figure, the R, is below 1. And it is currently between 0 and 0.9, but nobody really knows quite where. What was interesting, the Prime Minister didn't mention whether we should or should not be wearing masks. That was not mentioned in his speech. But the biggest takeaway is you must go to work if you can. If you can't work at home, you must go to work. If your employer is open and if you're in one of the employments that you can go to work in. Obviously, if it's a pub or a restaurant or a coffee shop, they're not going to open quite yet. It seems that if you do go to work, you can, and you're advised to go by car. By car, or if it's easier, to walk or cycle. But try to avoid the public transport where you possibly can, because you don't want to be too close to anybody. And of course, this physical distancing is essential. From Wednesday, why Wednesday? But from Wednesday, unlimited access to outdoors. So you can sit in a park, you can sunbathe on a beach, and you can go to the Peak District if you wish. And apparently the police are going to be upping the fines if you do not stick to the rules. So what does that mean? If I don't go to work, if I can't work from home, they'll be fining me. I better go to work then, I guess. Yeah. From June, it looks like the schools are likely to be reopening, and possibly, if things go well, pubs will open again in July. What do you make of all of this? Is there something I've missed out? Then let me know. I would like to hear your reaction to the Prime Minister's situation in tonight's show. Yes, we have got some videos, but it is important that we understand where we are at the moment. So call the Vobes on 0793 4746 790 and talk to me and tell me, are you going to go to work? Are you able to go to work from tomorrow? Or will the police come down and fine you if you don't stick to the rules? And what does it mean to be alert? What are we waiting for? Can you hear COVID crawling through the door, banging on the window? Does it come through the cracks? What do you think? What does it mean? And why do you suppose that we in England are any different from those in Scotland and Wales and possibly other countries? But England and Wales and Scotland are staying at home. Is that going to be any easier to understand? What do you think? So Gabriel says we are on lockdown for the next few months then. But are we on lockdown if we can have unlimited going outside? You could just sit in the park all day with your laptop. Maybe that's what you can do. David Hannah Barbara is saying, is the question. Yes, it's a good question. 2G says something. So I'm not quite sure what that means. I follow the 10 rules, says Mark Selwood, without spelling out what the extra 5 rules are. Park sensibly, pay the attendant on request, empty the machines, not at midnight, go home and have a nice hot bath, smoke a cigar in the morning. I think that's what Mark Selwood's thoughts are. Please tell me, he says, where can I get the biggest takeaway from? No idea. Big takeaways are us, probably. Jürgen Tad Deacon says, I switched my browser to Edge today. It runs best from all browsers. Apropos of... Right. Ed Loud says, I have an important question about making videos. Is it better to waffle about drones or drone on about waffles? Not a very important question. Rami Boo says, Happy Mother's Day to American viewers. Happy Mother's Day to you lot. Nigel says, first to find a policeman. Well, let's hope the policemen have gone to work, that the police don't all work at home. That would be a bit difficult, wouldn't it? If the police were working at home. Hello, is there a policeman in there? Nah, sorry, mate, I'm at home. Yeah, I know, but you're working at home, aren't you? Well, I'm not on duty till 10:30. Oh, it's 25 past 10. Can I have your attention? Come back in 5 minutes. Well, will you be in? Nah, I'll be on my beat. But I thought you were working from home. Well, I am working from home on my beat. It's part of my exercise, isn't it? Be alert. Britain needs alerts. Well, there's plenty of alerts in this show. Glastonbury says, be alert, your country... Oh, they're repeating each other now. Ed Loud says, and as for Wales and Scotland, it's just that their leaders are trying to be different to England to politically score points with public favour. They caused the confusion, not Boris, from a Labour voter. Boris is from a Labour voter. That's unusual. So, yeah, I think They wanted to be one up on him for sure, because they don't like the fact that we have a UK government and it's in England. I think that's very clear. Nicola Sturgeon seems to get her knickers in a twist every 2 seconds. I don't know quite why she is the leader of what she is, but hey-ho, they're staying at home. So if you think that you are able, if you live on the border, you can't go for unlimited walks in... those countries on the border. Let's find out who's calling up the Vobie One-Eyed Kenobi on the show today. Hello to you.
Good evening, Vobie. Glastonbury Gabriel.
Fantastic. Lovely to talk to you, Glastonbury Gabriel. How are you?
I'm very well. So I have a question for you. If we have unlimited access, what are your plans now?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what I have done. As I listened to the Prime Minister, I ordered a sleeping bag, I've ordered a blow-up mattress, and I've ordered a pump because I need to go to work. I've got to go to work now. So I can go anywhere in England to do my work because I have to work. I don't know yet if Airbnbs will be open because I don't know what their policy is. But I'm assuming that hotels will be open because people who go to work stay in hotels when they go to work, certain types of people who work, because there's a lot of different professions out there. So staying overnight somewhere is obviously part of people's jobs. I can't afford to do hotels because they're quite expensive. So I can sleep in my car. Might come to Glastonbury.
Oh, that'd be nice to see you down here in Glastonbury. Yay!
Find a nice little lay-by for me to park up in.
Well, let's face it, everybody else does around here.
There you go. I'll be at home.
Hedger, leisure in the edge there, boys.
So, from my perspective, it legitimizes me going out with a tripod and a camera as opposed to just a GoPro. So that I can, I can put a tripod up. Whereas before I felt I had to keep moving because it was part of exercise. I will still do the walks, and obviously, but sometimes I like to put a tripod up and get some different ways of doing my video, stand in front of the tripod, present, etc. It means I can do that now.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Which is a good thing. So that's what I've immediately done. I do feel that legitimately now no one can say you've got to stay at home. You've got to be alert, of course, whatever that means. And I will be alert. I don't want anyone nicking my car or my camera or taking the sun away from the sky. For goodness sake, I'm going to be alert.
Yes, as I said earlier on, your country needs alerts.
Exactly.
I'm not sure where I stand on this because, we are in a table of the people with the most deaths. We're up there. We're right at the top, and they're talking about letting things slide a bit.
But are we? I mean, it depends what statistics you are looking at, really.
Numbers of deaths, basically. I mean,
yeah,
for
but
example, my sister, I can speak from experience. My sister has spent the last 5 weeks in Salisbury Hospital on the ventilator, an inch from death.
Right.
So I know what this is about. I know how it impacts people, and I know what it is.
How old is your sister?
She's I'm 3 years younger than me, so she's 58.
And does she have any underlying issues, health issues?
No more than the average person.
What does that mean?
Well, she's had illnesses, but nothing. I mean, I've got type 2 diabetes, which gives me an underlying health thing. But no, she's still hanging on.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm not asking. I'm glad to hear that. I'm very glad to hear that. But so she is in an age bracket that is a vulnerable person. Would you say?
Yeah, but if you look at the statistics, the last batch of people that died ranged from 37 to 92. 12 of the ones in the 58 to 92 age range didn't have any underlying illnesses.
And how many of those died?
That's what I'm talking about. The last batch of people who died, 100 and something, was it?
So what? In the last batch of people who died, there were no people in their 80s or 90s?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There were from 37 right up to their 90s. So it's not just hitting the old people, it's hitting people across the age range.
Yes, absolutely. But
people with no underlying illnesses as well are still dying.
But how many of those people with non-underlying issues are dying?
Well, of those 12 had no underlying issues of that range between 58 and 92.
And how many did you say there were in total that died?
In total, the entire lot.
No, in that last batch.
I don't know. It was a reasonable. It was
like 400
batch.
Or something. Did you say?
100 and something, 170 something, I think, across all of them, but just in that little age range at the top.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, the thing is, we were told right at the beginning, and I don't know whether this has changed, that 80% of us would never need to go to hospital, and 80% of us would have it would be like a rough illness, but we would be okay.
That'd be great if you knew using the 80% for definite.
I agree, but if that is more or less a ballpark figure, then surely 80% of us can still go back to some sort of work if we are practicing this physical distancing.
If you can guarantee that you're in that 80%, then yes.
But
But
you
you
can't.
can't.
I don't
It
know
could
that
be
you
in
can.
that 20%.
No, but you can't guarantee any. You can't guarantee you're not going to be run over by a bus, or that you're going to have a hefty bout of influenza.
No. You see, the thing is, I look back at the Spanish influenza back in the 1918, 1917, 1819 period, and you look at that and the way that worked out, it was the second wave when it came back because people relaxed too early
Mm.
that really hit and caused all the deaths. There were many deaths in the first wave, but when it came back, it was relentless.
Right.
And its ability to transfer had increased, and it mutated in the meantime. I mean, there was a fascinating program on the television about it a while ago, and that's a concerning thing. I mean, it's not what, you know, if you're going to get it or not. It's if we go back and it's not under control. And I've yet to see any firm leadership from our current government. I mean, you know, they can't organise PPE. They can't do. You know, I'm not. I do not have faith in my government to give the correct information.
Well,
Basically,
I certainly think that's true. I don't think we're getting the correct. I don't think we've had the correct information from the start. But
no.
going back to your Spanish flu,
Mhm.
influenza, or
Mhm.
whatever it was you just said, that they relaxed, so they weren't expecting a second wave.
That's right.
Whereas what we have done is built these hospitals that are sitting empty, like the Nightingales. We've got
Yeah.
a ton of PPE being made, although not yet delivered everywhere. That
Flown in from China today, I believe, wasn't it?
it could well be. But
Yeah, it was.
my point that I'm leading up to is that if there is a second wave, we are a hell of a lot more prepared for such a thing than they were in the Spanish flu. Because
I would throw that back at you and
do.
say, if we are that prepared, why are we starting to relax already?
Well, that's the reason we are relaxing, is because we are more prepared.
I think that the lessons learnt, if there were any, from that epidemic, because it was a very similar virus, the lessons learnt from that are that you can't relax too soon. You know, I mean, it's a bit like Brexit, isn't it? There's going to be many sides to the argument, whereas Brexit had two sides. But it's, you know, it's one of those things nobody's ever going to agree with until we actually know how we treat it, how we eradicate it. Because, you know.
Yes, of course, but we don't have the joy of hindsight. I nearly said foresight then. We don't have the joy of foresight. We don't have the joy of hindsight yet to what to do, because we're in it. So
Absolutely.
we can only do what we can do, but clearly the lockdown can't go on forever. But my other question was, did they lock people down in the Spanish flu?
Well, no, I don't know. They did. No, I mean, people were kept indoors.
Yeah.
You know, buildings, businesses closed down, and people were off the streets.
So was the cure then worse than the disease? We don't know.
It was. I don't think it was. I mean, 20 million people died, I think, in that epidemic. 20 million.
Yeah, we're talking about the
1930s. Today look a bit small.
Well, we are talking about the 1930s, when we didn't really have anything like the advancements that we have now.
It's true, but I mean, we didn't have ventilators. But then now, if you get to the ventilator stage, you're 50-50 whether you come out the other end or not.
Yes, but at least you've got that 50-50, as opposed to back then you didn't have a 50-50. You had.
Well, you didn't have a 50-50, no. But my only point is that, you know, I know people in the health industry who are really worried by tonight's announcement. And at the end of the day, when I listen to anybody about anything to do with this, I listen to people who are on the front line. I've got some friends who work in the National Health Service,
yes,
and they do not like tonight. They just know that. In fact, one person said to me, "Well, the second wave's just been ordered." And that was what he said to me on the phone this afternoon when I said to him. He said, "Oh, well, they've just ordered the second wave."
So
that was his opinion.
Okay. So what put it like this then. The second wave has been ordered. Presumably, at some point, if we don't get a vaccine, we've all got to have this thing. We can't hide from it forever. So sooner or later, there will be a wave of some sort. And we do pay the medical people to save us from it. And only a small percentage of the people will go to hospital. That is their job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, they are dancing about in TikTok videos and things, which does seem a little disrespectful when people are dying from the disease. And so, although that it's like saying to the police, you know, well, there's going to be more crime next year. And they say, oh, well, we don't like that. We don't want to do it. We don't want to deal with it. But that is their job.
No, they're not saying they don't want to deal with it. They're just saying, and I guess, you know, people in the medical professions know more than I do, certainly.
Yes.
They are saying that this will result, you know, any let up now in the lockdown will result in a second wave and more cases. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I want to be out doing things more than the next man. But I just don't know the answers to any of these questions.
No,
you know,
and this is really what we're just thrashing out. Nobody knows the answers, and if anything, what I take away from the announcement is it's more vague in some respects, like the stay alert, than the stay at home, which puts the onus, I feel, on us, on the people, to use common sense.
Yeah, common sense. That's the bit that worries me.
Well, when you go
shopping,
what else would you do?
People can't even keep 2 meters away from you.
What else would you do?
What else would I do?
What else would you do?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But
that's not good enough. If you're sitting there as the PM and they say you've got to do something, everyone's looking to you. You've got to do something, and he says, "Okay, here's my plan. This is it." And people say, well, I don't like that. No, I don't like that. That's wave 2 coming. Then what else do you do? What's the alternative?
Well, at risk of sounding draconian, I don't think you can trust people. I mean, we've seen that. You go shopping and people walk within 2 meters of you. You know, people aren't respecting it. People are, you know, I was walking down the high street the other day to go and get my shopping on my own, and there are groups of people sitting around meeting up, and you think to yourself, come on.
Yes. So
where's the common sense?
You could be stricter then in the shops, could you not? You could say, okay, between this hour and this hour, only people of this age, and no groups. And you could keep the aisle. You could police the aisle. I mean, you could make the places where people will be closer together easier to be less close together. You could do that.
Yes, but then you still got to work with other members of staff, haven't you? You could get you need one of these things to come into you, and you've caught it. It's, you know.
Well, it's true. Yes, absolutely. But if you are a vulnerable person, you are not likely to go. No one's forcing vulnerable people out into the environment. No one's forcing vulnerable people to go to work.
No.
So if you felt vulnerable, then you wouldn't go to these places, and you might say, okay, look, what's the alternative to getting food? Because I don't want to go to the supermarket. Now, the chances are, there will be organisations and things that are going to help and ensure vulnerable people will get their food without having to go to the supermarket. And supermarkets are going to favour deliveries to vulnerable people.
Mm-hmm. Which they have done for a long, long time. But you try and book one.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm saying is we have a virus. We can't run away from it.
No, we can't.
So soon, and like the common cold or influenza or pneumonia or all these other things, we don't seem to worry too much about that. If somebody says, well, you might get cancer, you might get prostate cancer being a man. It's like, we don't go, oh my God, do you know what? I'm never going to go out of my house in case I get it or develop it.
We don't build with asbestos knowing it causes it. So you can mitigate things, can't you? It's all about mitigation.
Yes, so you have to use common sense, and you have to think, there are these evils in the world. I may well get it, but if I am of a certain health in a certain healthy. I don't smoke. I don't drink too much. I don't eat fatty foods. I'm not overweight. I'm not over 75. I'm not all these things that make me more viable. Why can't you go out and go to work and do these things and still keep physical distance?
Well, I guess you can, but I mean, I just think people aren't keeping physical distance when we've been on lockdown, full lockdown. They're not, So you give people an inch, they'll take a mile, and they've started doing it this weekend already. You've seen it in the news. People have heard this relaxation is coming through, and they've used that as an excuse. Where was it? One of the I was reading somewhere in one of the papers that the number of people coming in with head injuries from being drunk on Friday night into hospital, and you think to yourself, okay, so they've been out on the piss with all their mates getting, but that's not sensible. That's not common sense. People do not exercise the common sense. They don't use the brains they give them sometimes.
So
90% of people do. But
it
only is a small percentage.
So what kind of percentage of people are not using the common sense? Large or small? You said small. So do we run the country based on the fact that there are a few bad eggs, and therefore, because there are a few bad eggs, everybody else who is fine and healthy and all that and being common sense, they must all, it's that same sort of thing. Lock up the healthy as well as the ones who are vulnerable. Is that what we're doing? We're just lock everybody up, and then that way we're all in the same boat.
I don't know. I just feel that.
When would it be safe? When would you feel safe to go back out?
I don't know that either. I really don't know that. Certainly not when we're at third in the world in deaths, and the numbers are still rising. I don't know. I mean, they say we're over the peak, but I don't know. I don't know enough about it. All I know is that if I get the call to go back to work, I will probably go on statutory sick pay for a while, because I am 61 and I am got diabetes. So technically, I suppose I could be classed as at risk,
and
so I can't take a chance.
So, and hopefully your employer would give you that choice.
Oh, they will. I'm sure they will, because they're pretty good about it. But
that's great. I don't think anybody should be forced out. Absolutely shouldn't be forced out.
Absolutely not.
But those that feel that they are well enough and healthy enough and resistant enough should be able to go back. Let's face it. All these people who are off and being furloughed, and all the NHS and everybody else, we do need to pay for them. Somebody has got to raise the money to pay for them, and the government can do it for a short time, but we'll be all paying it back. The government needs some revenue.
There was talk about if furlough still in place at the end of June, it was going down to 60%.
Yeah, well, there you are. You see that. So there is the evils of those who are stuck at home, being lonely, being beaten up by their spouses. There's the child abuse that's going on from people who don't know how to cope, living in family. I mean, there's all of that, and all of that. We can't just let that go on because there is a virus that's a bit nastier than influenza.
Yeah, so it's a difficult one, isn't it?
It's
a difficult one.
Thank you.
What isn't a difficult one? Changing the subject completely.
Yeah.
I loved your Sunday chat show today.
Thank you very much.
It was great. It was like popping around for a cup of coffee. It was really sort of light.
I will try and do more of those.
Yeah, it was good. No, great info on the boom pole, because I spotted the other day that you were using a pole, and I said in the comments I think you're using a pole.
Yeah.
And that's a good idea, using a boom.
And that means I can go and learn the drone. I can go and take my drone out and learn how to fly it now, because I'll be working.
You can indeed. Yes, I'm thinking of taking mine out, because it'll add something to my videos, putting the drone on it.
There you go. Brilliant. Lovely to talk to you. We'll open the lines to other people. But
hopefully that's set the cat amongst the pigeons, and a few people will ring up and comment.
Yeah, no, definitely. As I always say in these sort of things, when we get to this, we can agree to disagree on various things, and we'll remain friends. We can talk around the subject. We can poke each other and say, well, what about this and what about that?
Oh, absolutely. That's the beauty of it.
That's it. But we're still all friends. Brilliant. Wonderful. Catch up with you soon.
Yes, and I look forward to seeing you. Maybe you'll head this way.
Yeah, I may well be. I
That'd be
could go anywhere
fantastic.
in England. So
Yes, yes. Although I'm waiting for the trains when the trains are going to come back.
yeah, well, that'd
Because
be interesting.
I
That will
mean, they've
be.
said nothing about the transport for people who need to use it to get to work.
I mean, the great thing is the petrol is at its so cheap at the moment.
Oh, I know.
So
That's the whole thing. We've
y-
had beautiful weather and cheap petrol, and we've been stuck indoors. What
yeah,
the heck?
yeah. The roads will be clogged though. That's the trouble now.
Oh, they will.
Take
They
care,
will.
Gabriel.
And you, my friend, and you. Thanks.
Lovely to talk
Bye.
to you. Bye bye. So there we are. Gabriel, rather unsure about going out to work, and you heard all the reasons for it. But what do you think? I'd be interested to hear your views on the situation. 07934746790. Are you one of those who are worried? Or is this all just a little bit too much? I was watching a video earlier today that basically said, based on government statistics, sorry about that, based on government statistics, that on average, if you're between 0 and 60, you are 99.8% likely to survive having an attack of COVID if you are between 0 and 60 years of age, based on the statistics they have. What do you think about that? Do you think that COVID is a terrible thing? Obviously, there are deaths, but how many more deaths have there been over a year average or over the last 5 years over influenza? And is this just are we going completely mad with this lockdown? Can we run away from this disease? Should we stay locked up and wait for it to go away? But will it go away? I don't think it can go away, can it? So what do we do about it? If you don't like the government's plan or Boris's plan, what would you like to see instead? How is it with you living at home with children? Would you like your children to go back to school? Do you trust them going back to school? And what do you think about the mainstream media in all of this? Have they scared you witless and changed your mind on things? Are you frightened to go out because you're so scared? And why wasn't masks being mentioned? What do you think about wearing a mask? Do you think that masks are a good thing? There seems to be conflicting opinions about masks. Some people say they've got to be good, haven't they? I understand that there are a number of Sikh doctors in the NHS who refuse to cut their beards off because of religious reasons, which you can understand, but so that they will be able to wear a mask that fits 100% hygienically to their face. If they don't, then they have to go on other duties. What do you think about that? What's your opinion? Give me a call on 0793 4746 790. Give us a call. Be interested to know what you think. Stay alert. Control virus and save lives. My phone is clicking away. The conditional plan. How do you feel about these conditions? What kind of work are you on? And will you be able to survive if the furlough scheme goes down, as Gabriel said, to 60% of your income? Is that enough to survive by? I imagine that a lot of people live to their means. So if you've got, I don't know what, say 30,000 coming in, you're probably spending 29,000 of it. So will 60% mean that you can survive? Have you got a job to go back to? Where are you in all of this? I want to know. Give me a call, 0793 4746 790. Don't be shy. I'm not going to bite your head off. Let's go and have a look at some of the comments. Jeff Kellison says, garden centres I have passed in my travels have been packed with people. It does look like garden centres will be opening their doors very soon here. Mark Selwood says, I've really enjoyed filming heritage sites without people sunbathing and playing games with family members only. That's true. Not that I've gone to heritage sites really, well, other than walking over the downs and stuff. Ron Marshall says that is why we have laws, because of some are irresponsible. Exactly. So we can police those laws, and enforce those laws. No matter how long people are locked up, says J. Double Harvey, there will always be a second wave, no matter when we open. So it's just a question of when, and we will be more prepared, I put forward now, for a second wave, because we know what we have. We know what we were expecting these hospitals to be overfilled, and they're not. The Nightingale and the one in in West London at the XL Centre, and then the National Exhibition NEC. That was the letters I was looking for, and the other one, wherever the other one is, in Liverpool, is it, or somewhere? They've been mothballed. But they're on standby should we need people. That's a lot of beds. That is a lot of beds. I think one of them alone was about 4,000 beds it could take. We had nowhere near that sort of situation. Dawn says, I'm 67, hubby is 71. We are healthy and bike 40 miles with no illness. There you go. So would you go to work? So much depends, of course, on your work. If your work is in a small little factory and it's just you and somebody else on another floor, what would be wrong with that? Mike Stevens says, so the Swedish people have more common sense than the UK. He's answering Ed Loud, who's not quite sure what that conversation was. Apologies for that. Is chat stopped, says Robin. No, chat is not stopped at all. You should be able to chat. I'm reading the chats as we speak. What have we got here? Mystic Hair says something. Edward, this show we're talking about. If you don't want to watch the show, I'm talking about what the Prime Minister said. That is the nature of this show. People who are telling me to move on or to stop talking, find another show. It's your prerogative. Vote with your feet. Tonight, I'm talking about the important matter that the Prime Minister has said. You have a chance to give me a call on 07934746790. You don't have to watch. Nobody's forcing you. So that's that. The death total is not with COVID. Hang on, let me get this right. The death total is with COVID, not from COVID. Studies have said in Italy have suggested that people dying with COVID is actually 12.5% of the with COVID total. And this is what I'm confused about, is there seems to be a difference of people who've died with it and people who've died of it. And people who may have died and been dying anyway may well be registered of dying from it rather than just having it. And are people dying from anything else? Because all we're getting is how many people are dying from COVID. It's almost as if nobody else is dying from anything else. I would like to know how many extra people have died from cancer problems because they've not gone to the hospital, or strokes, or anything else. We don't hear about how many of those people die, and we've not really mitigated against them. So that's also an interesting thing. Kevin Hall says, I am lonely, being on my own, but I will stick with stay at home. Only he goes out for walks. So, you know, it's not being at home. But you can't work, Kevin, can you? Because unless you've got empty houses to go to. You can't go and work in other people's houses because it depends on the other person. If they say, well, I'm going to go out for a month, then you're able to. So, you know, you've got no choice. But you're self-employed. You can't keep on. I mean, you know, self-employed people can't stay on ad infinitum, surely. You know, at some point, we've got to face the music, haven't we? It's no fun in disagreement, doesn't end with fisticuffs, says Mark Selwood. I'm not sure what you mean. Barbara Charles says, at least he's not showing us his bread. No, I'm not showing the bread. Ed Wolf says, people who are vulnerable shouldn't be forced to work. I agree with that. I'm happy to go out. Exactly. I don't think anybody is forcing out the vulnerable. I think that Boris really is trying to say we need to get the economy working again, even if it's in a small way. Hello, you've through to the Vobes show. How are you?
Hello, Richard. It's Ed Loud here. How are you? I'm good, thanks.
I'm very well, thank you very much. Nice of you to call, Ed.
I just thought I'd get my pennies worth in while we were on the topic, because I do generally try to avoid talking about the old COVIDs, but as you've heard me say before, I do sort of believe in common sense generally, and there's a bit of a problem where I live in Greenwich with, we've got a lot of tourist areas, and what tends to happen is the big tourist areas, the Cutty Sark, Greenwich Park, places like that, they tend to be full up of people who don't necessarily live there. They live an hour away, an hour's walk or 2 hours walk. And these places, they fill up with these people. But the vast majority of the green spaces where I live are very nearly empty, to be fair. You could be several yards, 50, 60 yards away from the nearest person when the place is crowded, which is not bad at all. So I don't know, I'm just getting a bit disappointed in the media, I think, really, that they will look at a place like the Cutty Sark or Greenwich Park and, oh, well, that's it. People in Greenwich aren't sticking to social distancing. Look at them all. So when in fact, it's people from miles away.
So just tell me, remind me, the Cutty Sark, don't you have to pay to go in there?
I wouldn't even know. I would imagine so. I've never even been bothered to go in there, quite frankly. It's, it's an old tea clipper. Big whoop.
I will let that pass about not going in to see one of our famous tea clippers, but that's a different issue. But my question is, are they not shut so that there would be no reason that people would be gathered around them?
Yes, but people still like to go and hang around in these beauty spots. I mean, you can see it clearly. Then I don't know the area, so you can see it clearly. You're right by the banks of the Thames. There's lots of historic buildings. It is a tourist area, and people are naturally attracted and think, oh, I'll go and sit by the river.
So if you went to the Cutty Sark and you could look through the railings and there's the thing and there's lots of other people around, but if all those people around the Cutty Sark and all these groups of people were sneezing violently and coughing up blood, do you think people would get close to them?
No, of course not. Of course not.
So why is the message then not given more strongly that we need to be, I mean, just physical distances or social distance is one thing. But if we could see the signs of people who are ill, we wouldn't go near them. My point being that common sense generally tells us that if somebody is ill and spitting and what have you, you tend not to go near them. If we can get that across, that people could potentially be carriers, so do stay away, perhaps people would use their common sense.
Yes, more. I think most people are using their common sense, and in the places that they're not, they've got people like my brother hanging around in their uniforms with their warrant cards to go and say to people, hey, look, please don't linger here, it's too crowded, etc., etc. My point mainly being that I'm getting quite angry and frustrated at the media that, yes, all right, you'll go to a big famous park and you'll find lots of people, but then the people in that area get the blame for it. And hang on, is it the people in those areas? Well, no, of course not, because people like me who live in the area will go sit in a quiet park where there's no one around apart from a swan and a goose. And I was listening to you read the other day and I was sitting in a park and I only saw 5 people the whole time I was there.
Did you see a swan or a goose?
I saw plenty of swans and plenty of geese.
Good.
I even saw a great brutish looking Rottweiler get chased away. I think it was by a goose. I think it was by a goose. It was quite hilarious. But yeah, it's not necessarily a COVID thing, really. I just wanted to point out, really, that I think the media are sort of stirring up stuff, and certainly living in a borough with a lot of tourism, I'm getting quite disappointed because the people who live in the area, this area's full of parks. We know where to go. We know where to hang out and where there's not going to be loads of people. And I'm quite vulnerable myself. I've got a massive chest issue. I'm trying to keep myself out of hospital and everything. It's not COVID related, and I'm feeling quite safe. You know, I'll go and sit in that park, and I don't feel like I'm going to catch anything off anyone. There's hardly anyone around, and you know, I managed to sit there for an hour and listen to you read, and saw. I mean, I'm exaggerating if I say I saw half a dozen people. I think about 5 people. That's all I saw the whole time. So I'm just.
How do you take this message, stay alert? What does that mean?
Oh, I think it's a bit of a silly word to use, alert, but I haven't really got a problem with it. I think it's I think he just wants people to use their common sense, which is what I've said all along, and I don't have all the answers.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right there. That stay alert is effectively saying use your common sense. Don't if there's a bunch of people who are together, don't join them. You're being alert that they might be carrying it. They look healthy, but they might be carrying it. So just keep your wits. Is it saying keep your wits about you?
Yeah.
Is that what it means?
I think maybe that's what they mean. Keep alert. If you see a big crowd, back off and go and sunbathe somewhere else. I have no issue with that. But yeah, just sort of that was all I wanted to say really on the COVID front. That please bear with the people who live in these tourist locations. It's not really their fault. They're the ones sticking to the rules, and they're going to the quiet parts and don't punish them for the mistakes of others.
Do you blame people who have been locked up with families in perhaps high-rise blocks or however they live, and want to go out and go to, and they may not know all the nuanced places that the quiet places where you can see a couple of ducks and a swan, but they just know, oh, Greenwich, we'll go to Greenwich because there's a big park there. Do you blame those people for actually wanting to get out and do that after 7 weeks of lockdown?
I can't blame them for 1 minute for wanting to get out. What I would hope and pray that they do instead is go 5 roads down the street and see what they can find. Because I'm amazed at the things I've been finding.
Yes, but if they don't live in your area, and they live in an area where it's all built up and there's nowhere else to go, and
I live in an area where it's all built up. I had a great time walking around the local council estates. I live in a block of flats. I live in a council flat, and I've still managed. I've discovered that in the last 2 years where I haven't been able to get to the Romney Marshes and explore.
But
I've started exploring my local area.
You are an educated, sophisticated, debonair young man with intelligence far beyond your capabilities of controlling. There are a lot of other people who perhaps don't think the same way as you, and people may just not be used to going out in the same way. They've gone to work, they've gone to the pub, they've walked around the local park, they've seen,
Here's what I was thinking about this when I walked through the woods earlier to go and do some shopping, and I deliberately go through the woods. It takes 5 minutes extra, but it's nice. And I was thinking to myself, people go to get somewhere rather than go for the journey. And I've made this mistake when I've been filming videos for you. And I was thinking, I need to start filming the journey. Instead of getting to the park and saying, oh, well, hello, Vobes, this is a lovely park. It's 3 acres of land. Maybe I need to show you all the journey and say, look at these flats I'm walking under. And yes, they're not the prettiest things in the world, but you need to see the dark to notice the light and vice versa. And maybe that's part of the problem. As a culture, we want to go somewhere and get somewhere rather than enjoy the journey.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, certainly, and it's funny you should say it related to videos, but I think with my videos, the journey is the thing, the destination is the end point.
Exactly. And I think that's something we can all learn. But yeah, that was just really the basis of my call, was just to say, I wish people would stop picking on people who live in my case, in Greenwich and wherever you happen to live, if there's a local beauty spot.
I don't really understand. Are they picking on you?
I've noticed in the media, I've seen a few things about Greenwich Park and a few things on social media about the Cutty Sark and things like that. Right. And
you just don't want to listen to the media and social media. You just sort of try and just cut it out of your life.
Yeah, I just
get rid of Twitter. Dump Twitter. Dump it. Don't read it. Don't read it. Don't read it. Don't read Facebook. Don't read all these things. Just watch my videos.
Well, I only joined Facebook to follow you and Richard Bucket, to be fair.
There you go. Don't get sucked into all the other.
I just wanted to plead the case that these people living in London and tourist spots and things like that, we're not the ones going to these parks, and bear with us because we're going through it as much as the rest of the country.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you've made your point, and thank you very much indeed, Ed. I'd loved talking to you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye. Oops. Right, there we go. That was Ed. Okay. I wanted to spend some time tonight. I know it's upset some people that I'm talking about this. It is my show, and I'll do what I bloody well like, really. But that's it. That was the Prime Minister's thing. I thought it was important to talk about it. You may not think it's important to talk about it, but I think as my public duty really is to acknowledge what the government is doing, and in the annals of history, you may think I'm a complete and utter idiot for doing so. But I've done that now. 2 calls. Thank you very much. I've aired my views. You've been able to air your views. But we will move on to our videos and our contributors. So thank you for bearing with me. When these big events happen, the Vobes show, it's an evolving show. I don't know how I react to things. I don't have a producer. And I don't have a schedule as such. I try to make the show as entertaining, as interesting as I possibly can, but I am only one person. And, of course, people do like to criticise and pull me apart as and when they want to. And that's fine. I don't care. Basically, I don't care. You can do that. I will just carry on doing my show in the way that I like to do it. Because if I did it in another way that I wasn't enjoying it, you wouldn't enjoy it either. So I appreciate that you may not have enjoyed those things. I am following the COVID thing. I'm following what Boris does. I find it absolutely fascinating. It is going to be part of history in the making. It is history in the making. It will be part of our heritage. It will be something that no doubt I will be talking to my grandchildren in the future about it. So I do want to understand it, and I want to see all the different angles. And I'm fascinated by your points of view too, which is why I give the airtime to those who want to talk about it. To those who tell me to, shut up and move on and do something else, find another channel. You're not welcome. Because this show will evolve with the things that are of the time. But having said all of that, we will go back to the videos and all the other things that we do, which is a lot more comfortable. So thank you for the calls. I won't have any more calls this evening. Thank you very much. But we will go and have a look at the videos because you have been out making them, and I really do appreciate that, no matter what I've just said. This show is a show that I try to pitch for you at different things, and people will get different things out of it. So I understand that. I'm learning myself. Let's go into the video box and see what's there. So we have some videos that we didn't show from yesterday, and let's have a look. We've got one from Gabriel, one from Josephine, and one from Adrian. So in that order, Gabriel, who we heard on the phone earlier, he has been out and about with I think this is the final part, I'm not sure if it's the final part now, I can't remember, of his look at the industrial side of Glastonbury.
Turner Street has a huge connection with one local family. That family's name is Clark. Now you may know this as Clark's shoes. Most of you probably grew up wearing them while you was at school. Well, they actually were based here in Street. This town built up around the shoe industry, and the family, as we'll find out a bit later, being Quakers, were very philanthropic and did lots for the town. Let's go and see. In a future video, I will look at the history of the Clarks family and their influence on the town of Street in much greater depth. Today's video, however, is merely a snapshot. In 1821, Cyrus Clark and a Quaker cousin started trading as fellmongers and tanners in the town of Street. By 1825, the partnership had dissolved and Cyrus had moved here to the site on Street High Street. Then, in 1828, his younger brother James joined the company and started to make brown Petersburg slippers, as they were called. Grannies across the country started buying them, and in 1833, C&J Clark was formed. James Clark, being the younger of the partnership, was far more outlooking and dynamic. James was a promoter of the Central Somerset Railway, which was to run from Glastonbury to Highbridge. Joining up with railways coming up from Bournemouth in the south and Bath in the north, this became the Somerset and Dorset Joint Railway, much beloved by train spotters the world over. The Clarks were Quakers and as such were constant benefactors in the area. For example, Greenbank Swimming Pool. I've crossed the road now so that we can come and have a look at Greenbank Pool. Another bequest of the Clarks family on the townspeople of the street. Greenbank Pool was built on the bequest of Alice Clark after her death in 1934. On hot summer's days before the pool opened, members of the street community swam in the nearby River Brue. As the men and boys were inclined to swim naked, the women and girls were reluctant to swim with them, and it was Alex Clark's wish to provide a nice swimming bath generally available for women and children. Alice's sister, Dr. Hilda Clark, and nephew William Bancroft Clark turned to Carl Hind and C&J Clark Limited's building department to design and build an outdoor swimming pool. In an interesting and rather green side note, the pools were originally heated with cooling water from the nearby Clark's factory. The pool opened in 1937. To this day the pool retains a lovely old-fashioned air with some reassuringly traditional rules too, such as no bombing, ducking, splashing or heavy petting. Thanks for watching this Glastonbury Gabriel video. Please hit that subscribe button and click that bell to receive notifications every time I upload a video. And please smash that like button, because on YouTube, that's what makes the world go round. Thanks. Laters.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Gabriel. How interesting. I used to take the kids into Clark shoes, and they were the days. Do you remember the days when you used to go into a shoe shop and they would measure your feet? And then they would disappear out the back and try and find the shoes that you want, instead of you just picking up any old left-hand shoe off the shelf and stick it onto your kids' shoes and walk about. People and the people who used to do that, they seem to know about feet. They seem to know whether it was right fitting or not and just look at you blankly chewing gum. Do you remember those days? Maybe I'm just going into the wrong shoe shops when I get my shoes. But anyway, absolutely fascinating. Are Clark shoes still going? Well, who's been out into a shoe shop recently? I don't suppose we've been in a shoe shop for some time. What are people doing about buying shoes? I suppose we're all buying them online and then sending them back. Anyway, very interesting. Love the shots there. Loving the new camera, by the way. Looks fantastic. Thank you very much to Gabriel. That's superb. Now, next on our list was Josephine. And Josephine has been out and about in the countryside, walking around, doing her thing. So let's find out where Josephine Souter has been. And here she is now.
Hi, it's Josephine here. I wanted to show you my lovely rhododendron bush, which is in full flower, and the bees are really loving it. I think this is the best it looks this time of year. I'll take you around the tree so you can see it in full bloom. I don't think you can see any bees, but they really love it. Here's a worker bee collecting pollen. And here's the azalea flower in full bloom. It's really pretty this time of year and has a lovely scent to it as well. Again, the bees love this. And here's a bee, busy bee, collecting pollen.
Superb stuff. What lovely colours. How about that? Beautiful colours. Amazing rhododendrons. I can't remember what the other bush was now, because as you know, I can't hear them when they go out, and I can't remember what the name of the yellow bush was. But the rhododendron was great, and what made it for me was capturing the bee on the petals. That was really nice. So well done. And I gather, of course, I said you're out and about in the streets and stuff, but of course, I think you said that's in your garden. So what a lovely festoon of colour in your garden. Very lovely. Now, in the chat, people have been talking about the X-ray machine. I'd not encountered that for your feet. Must have missed that. So do tell me more about the X-ray machine. How did that work? Did you put your feet in? Did people leave the room? How many times is it safe to do that? An X-ray machine for your feet? I think it was Glastonbury who said that the staff were trained in the Clark's shops before they were allowed to go out onto the sales floor. And it's funny because when you train a member of staff these days, it's like a 15-minute induction, isn't it? It's a sort of chat these days, that seems to me, that staff are given. Whereas in the past, training seemed to be quite a long, drawn-out process, so you really learnt something. We have lost a lot of that in the days. If you actually knew how shoes were put together and manufactured, you're certainly going to be able to advise what shoes you wear. So that's interesting. I have bought cheap shoes in the past that have lasted forever, and I've bought expensive shoes in the past that have fallen to bits very quickly. It does seem to me, occasionally, when I do buy, a bit hit and miss. Maybe you have a favourite shoe that you would always, or a favourite brand that you would always buy, knowing that each time you buy that brand, they're just not going to fall to bits. I've had Doc Martens in the past, and they're very nice and they do last, but they're quite heavy old things, and they don't always look appropriate for some of my outfits. But I'd be interested in the names of some of your shoes there. Mark Selwood says, I prefer Deichmann shoes, even though they fell apart after 2 months. Did you take them back? Has anybody had some shoes and after a couple of months taken them back and said, hey, wait a minute, look, they're falling to bits? Or have you got a secret remedy for putting the tongue? Is it the tongue? No, the sole. You know when the sole comes off and flaps down like that. Have you tried things like Evo Stick or super glue? Has it worked? Be interesting to know. Really beautiful, Josephine, says Wendy Lowry. Thank you for showing us. Yes, it's lovely, lovely garden. And I was intrigued. I wanted to look inside that little shed at the top of the garden. And it does. Is it on a slope? That was fascinating to see. So there, Barbara Charles says, best sandals I ever wore were Clark sandals. They're getting a good reputation. Yeah, I think if you have the quality in the product, it will get remembered. Of course, whether you can get those things out into the marketplace and make enough money before the world recognises that they're the best is another thing. So there we go. Everyone's saying thanks for that. Robin Marshall says, you used to put your feet in the machine. I understood it was x-rayed. They stopped it because it was dangerous. Yeah, I wonder if anybody got some sort of cancer of the foot as a result of it. Glastonbury says, no, they were made of wood and you would just walk up to it, stick your plates in the hole and pressed a button. Oh, right. Audrey Forbes says the x-ray machine was in the main shop and you put your foot into it and access it into a recess and it showed a picture of your foot, bones and all. I wonder if I can't remember doing that. I think as a child I would remember that because it would be an incredible thing. Would be a bit of a worry now. Linda Kane says, large wooden box, put the feet in, you look down through the top at the same time as the staff and you'd see the structure of your feet every time you had a new pair of shoes. But the question is, apart from radiating your feet, did they actually provide you with shoes that were at a good fit for all of that? You now use rubber solution that has to flex with the shoe when dry. Oh, that's interesting. I buy Doc Martens. They seem to last forever. Forever is a long time, of course. And J.W. Harville says, hot glues can keep a poor man's shoe together. Ah, that's what we need. Mike Stevens says, had M&S shoes which fell apart but lost the receipt. And now what is the consumer right? Do you actually legally have to have the receipt if the product says Marks and Sparks on it, or the equivalent, and that is their range that year? If you can prove, I suppose, by the product being it is unique to that year's fashion, has their label in it, you couldn't possibly have bought it anywhere else. Surely that would be sufficient. Is the onus that you've bought it on you, or should they also have a record? Presumably they keep a copy of the receipt, if only to calculate how many shoes they've had and where the stock's gone. I'm not sure what the consumer law is on that. Perhaps maybe one of you know that. That would be interesting. Barry Stevens says, I was thinking about doing a video from my cabinet of curiosities, but I'm worried people think I'm a little odd. We know that you're a little odd, but you're a great dad. You take Faden out every day and you make videos and you have an amazing relationship with your son. You're not odd at all. There's plenty of people who are much more odder than that. So do make a video about the curiosities in your cabinet. I, for one, would be fascinated to see them. Andy Murphy says, I can remember spending many an hour at Clark shoe shops just before the back-to-school range. Yeah, there we go. That's a sort of slogan. I noticed the back-to-school range starts always at the beginning of the summer holidays. Well, they've got 6 weeks to suddenly grow out of those pairs of trousers that you've bought in the end of July, so that when it comes to September, they actually need another pair of back-to-school things. Sounds to me like a bit of a con. Ron Langley, he says, who mends their own shoes now? Well, I do, actually. I've got some slippers on here. I'm not going to be embarrassed. This is what I'm wearing. I've got gaffer tape on my slippers. These are £11 slippers. I would like them to have lasted a year. I don't have the receipt. And the flap flaps off. I'm too poor to buy my own slippers. How about that? That's what they should look like. Who mends his own shoes? You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. We all have our secrets. My secret is out. Gaffer tape on your slipper. How about that? What else have we got here? Being wallpapering, says Paul Graham. My granny used to take me into Clark's to get my feet measured. Then we would duck out and go to the cheap shop for a few doors down. Marvellous. Glastonbury says a lot of shops now can find your purchase from the till database. Quite right. So they can find your trank. Yes, not only can they do that, they probably know where you live and how many times you've been in the shop. I remember when Doc Martin were police shoes, says Mr. Connell. Were they? Is that originally what they were? Standard issue for policemen. Didn't know that. We know what to buy you for Christmas, says Robin Marshall. Yes, an endless supply of size 9 slippers, if you're thinking of it. Ron Langley says that was funny. Gaffer tape on slippers. Love it. Just as comfortable. I can tell you that. Jeff Kellison, he is a great dad. There we go. You are, Barry. You're a great dad. Dawn Coping says, poor Richard looks like John's slippers. Yeah, but, you know, they work. There are some people who who can put up with things and don't need the absolute best of everything or the aesthetics of everything. I can put up with a lot, really. I live in kids' PE shoes, says At Home with Mindy. There you go. If it works, it's got to be a lot cheaper, hasn't it? That's brilliant. Ramy Boo says, I wonder how many pairs of slippers you'll get sent now. Yeah, people won't send me slippers. Depends on how hard to have worn shoes in normal wear, says Beach. Right. I mean, I do live in the slippers when I'm at home, and I spend a fair amount of time at home, especially over lockdown, of course. So that's interesting. Audrey Forbes says something to Linda. I still have my wedding shoes. Went to my cousin's wedding back in December in them. Have you worn them since the wedding, though, Mark Selwood? I didn't even know you got married. Did you get married and divorced? Is that what happened? Josephine Suter, and he needs a washing line, he said on the morning chat. There you go. I need a washing line and a pair of slippers. I'm a typical bloke, really. Let's go and see if we can have another video. One that we didn't get round to was Adrian. And Adrian's going to take us, Mr. Turbo Charger is going to take us into the centre of Birmingham. Look out for the library.
Well, hello Richard, it's Adrian at Turbo Shroom again. So welcome to the city centre of Birmingham. More specifically, Centenary Square. So I thought I'd show you a quick look round the buzzing metropolis that is Birmingham, although it's absolutely deserted today. So let's have a look round. This is the new library, £189 million worth. Some people love it, some people hate it. I actually quite like it. There's a Shakespeare room on the top floor. Normally when you can get up there. And they've got the old works of Shakespeare in there and things like that. As you pan round, we've got Baskerville House just at the end there. We've got all the buildings growing up. All the memory just in front of the fountains. And what used to be the central library, the old Brutalist Central Library, that got knocked down. Well, we're in the middle of the Centenary Square now. That's another view of the Hyatt Hotel. I appreciate it's not to everybody's taste. In this setting though, I think it does fit in. It's been here quite a long time and they've revamped the square. A lot more modern, clean. There's some nice gardens they've put in, there's 2 or 3 of those dotted around. We've got the Birmingham Rep Theatre there. That view there is towards Gas Street Basin and the Cube. We've got some little buildings here. And of course we've got the trams.
There we go. A little loud at the beginning of that. Sorry about that. It's very easy to... I've seen Mr. Suggett do the same. You put the stuff on the system and you have to pre-adjust the volume each time, which is something that's, after a while, I think I always do it before the show, and sometimes when you play them in, it doesn't always happen. So, yeah, thanks for the ironic comments about the audio. Much appreciated, but it did alert me to the fact that they were playing in a bit loud. There we go. But lovely, interesting. I'm not sure I like the design. Who liked the design of the I'm too much of a traditionalist. I just find all that stuff very unacceptable to look at. It looks to me like it's going to catch the dust and the mess and it looks like they were trying to the library I'm talking about. It looks like they were trying to disguise the fact that it was just a series of square oblongs on top of each other by putting that weird mesh. It looked like some newfangled prison, but hey, you know, what do I know? But thank you so much, Adrian, for bringing it in. It's interesting. I haven't been to the centre of Birmingham for a long time. I have been down, what's the famous street down there? Broad Street. Is it Broad Street? When I used to go and do my radio, I used to work for one of the large commercial radio stations as a freelance, making videos for them. And they had offices off Broad Street for a while. Somebody's at the door now. Just a moment. We've got takeaway, another takeaway. They're always eating takeaways. I don't know how they can afford it. It's far too new centre of Birmingham, says Mr. Croser. That was next. Oh, there was next to Broad Street, was it? Yes, I can't remember which end of the Broad Street I went to. They've got some nice old buildings in there, but they have got a lot of that last building that you showed, that sort of weirdy shaped thing, seems to be a lot of the current trend in there. Anyway, so now we've got two more videos I'd like to fit in. So we were talking about good fathers looking after their children and taking them out. Barry and Faden, I think Barry, you said that you are part of this organisation that we're going to see, a petting farm. And I was amazed at the amount of animals that you, and how much access you can get. Is that the same access that members of the public can get? Perhaps not at the moment, but generally. Let's go. How do I get back in there? Let's go in and have a look. Barry and Faden at the petting farm.
Hello all. Today we are in a developing petting farm.
Okay, let's show you around some animals. They're a bit noisy, so hopefully you can hear me. Then there are pygmy goats. They are pygmy goats. There's another one there, grey and white one. And over here we have some sheep.
They might look like goats, but they're actually sheep.
What was that?
They might look like goats, but they're actually sheep.
They are.
There is also some more animals over there.
There's a random chicken.
All of them are over there as well.
This is another section of the petting farm. The animals have pretty much got free rein to go where they like. This is a German micro pig. He's very friendly, although a bit grumpy sometimes.
Yeah, except they don't get to like roam all the way. They're not like allowed all the way like over there, because that's like the bit where they're gonna like where they park, like the owners park.
Yes. As you can see, the pig just sleeps where he likes, right in the front of the doorway. His name is Elvis.
Hello.
Here we have some emus. And there's the piggy coming under my legs.
This is a friendly lavender Chinese.
What's his name?
Quinton.
His name's Quinton. So these are Chinese white geese. And this one is a wild Muscovy goose.
There's also some.
Normal Muscovies. You may recognise these two from a previous video that we did. They've grown up a lot. These are cool ducks. Some normal chickens, common chickens. This is a little pond that all the birds can play in. They've got all this land to go and explore. That up there are the farm's cats. They've got their own den that they can come and go from. Here we have some quails. We looked after these when they were little chicks. They were no bigger than, a bit bigger than a marble. Not bigger now. I'll take you over here. These are goslings, which are baby geese. Or are they goslings? No, these are goslings.
We're going to end it here. Thank you everybody for watching. And goodbye. I know you didn't get to hear me as much or see me as much, but that's because I was just like washing up and everything and like washing everything in there. So we're going to say goodbye now. Goodbye all.
Goodbye. We did want to show you a hair-stroke rabbit, but it's hiding in the bushes, so we go goodbye for now. Bye-bye.
There we go. How about that? Fantastic. Lovely, lovely animals. Brilliant stuff. And so wonderful to be able to get so close to all those different types. So that was great. Barry, a favour. Just want to ask you a favour. Saw so many things there, and I don't mean to criticise at all, but could you, I know, you like to move the camera around, but could you just hold it a little stiller on some of those animals? It seemed to be going, just as I was beginning to look at the duck or something, you scooted away to something else. I would just love to have seen the camera a lot more stationary and just slowly going from one to the other rather than, going so fast, because it was so interesting. The other thing is pigs. I keep hearing that there are no such thing as micro pigs, that's just a name for piglets. What's the situation there? Are there such thing as micro pigs, or are they just baby pigs? What is that? What is that about? I'd be fascinated to know. Do let me know if you know that. The lovely Julia says, fantastic. Thanks, Barry and Faden. That was wonderful. Did you say that they're your animals? I think Barry said that he was connected with the charity that runs it, if I remember rightly. Faden's real nature, natural with the animals. Yeah, he absolutely is, says Josephine. That was fantastic. Well done, Faden. Gabriel says, in fact, you can go back. I'd love to see more. Absolutely. Do go back and film some more. That would be nice. Barry says, I will try that, Richard. I need a director. You do very, very well. It's just that would be the only criticism, is the camera is diving about. I know it's so tempting, especially with animals, because they run around, and I know what it's like. You're filming one thing, and out the corner of your eye, you say, oh, that's interesting, or that's interesting. Just got to remember, the audience haven't seen this before, and so they need to take time to absorb the scene. So just slow the camera work down rather than shunting it all around. And actually, just as a point of interest, if it was a professional shoot, and this is by no means a criticism to you or to any of my contributors at all, right? Because I don't want to criticise at all. But do you know what? I didn't have any official training, but if you watch any professional videographer or cameraman, when I'm using this as if it's a phone, when they're filming something, they may go from A to B, but they tend not to go, unless you're following something, You tend not to go back again and up and down and do this. You just tend to, it's cleaner to start at one position, give it a second or so, and then move to the second position, then and cut, and then, you know, go somewhere else and somewhere else. Just a little tip, because it can look like people can get motion sickness, especially with animals. But I know it's so tempting because you're seeing something. I've filmed various bits of animals, and the one thing that you're filming is not as interesting as the thing that's just happening off camera, and it's that sort of resisting to go, oh, I'll film that, because by the time you get the camera there, the thing you were filming is now doing something interesting. Animals, so difficult. I know. So that's it. Ed Loud says, I welcome criticism on my videos. When the lovely Julia mentioned about the video of mine being quiet, it alerted me to an issue with the stereo output and effects. Yeah, I mean, I try not to criticise them. Barry says, has been going to be the size of a medium dog, so not micro. People make the mistake of thinking that it'll be small forever. Yes. So is that just a baby growing up then? Because I think in the past there was a phase, wasn't there a phase when people were buying micro pigs, and actually they were buying piglets, and people were just selling them as micro pigs. If I remember rightly, it was all a con. But anyway, that was it. One more video tonight. We have Robert Croser has been out and about. He's taken 3 walks on the same area, I think. So let's get part 2 of his walk before the end of the show. Over to you, Robert Croser.
Hello Verbonauts, welcome to part 2 of this walk round Armathwaite. We're just under the bridge and we're going to walk along the River Eden down to the ruined mill, and hopefully I might be able to get to the faces today that are carved in the riverbank, in the cliffs. Probably not, because I've got my little 3-year-old with me, but we'll never know. See how we do when we get there. Right, pan round, and there we go.
Going down to the river to get water, won't they?
Yeah, we'll get water.
Yeah, they'll get water.
They'll get water.
From the river.
Oh no.
Yeah, there's lots, isn't there? They're a bit like the fingers, aren't they?
Hello. There's obviously a rookery on the other side of the river, judging by the noise. Yeah, better that than seagulls everywhere. We're not that far from the sea, only about 10-12 miles. You can just make out the river. It's absolutely glorious today. It's not too warm, it's not too cold. It's just right. Gorgeous, isn't it? If we're lucky, oh, there's some mallard and some ducklings there. If we're lucky, we might see an otter, or signs of an otter. They are here because I've seen them myself and filmed them before on this river. It's very unspoilt here. Careful. Look at the roots there sticking out. Marvellous. path leads us back on to the top of the riverbank where it's a bit more flatter and a bit more suitable. So I'm going to say ta-ta for now. See you in part 3.
Great use of a gimbal there. Marvellous. Well done, Robert. That was fantastic. Love the colours on the opposite bank. Those wonderful copper beaches that look there, or look like they were there. Fantastic. And I thought the runner was going to dive into the hedge and then jump into the river. Although she was smiling, she did look like she was absolutely terrified. But then we didn't see exactly what you held in your hand. But we look forward to part 3. Fantastic. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for tonight. Thank you for bearing with me. We've come up to 9:30. We've managed to discuss what was going on in the news, and we've got through our videos as well. Thank you for joining me. Thank you to the lovely Julia for doing all the admin, and of course to the lovely Judith moderating on there with Julia. Thank you for everybody's your comments and your phone calls and all of that. I hope you have a lovely Sunday. I'll be back again tomorrow, Monday, and we'll see what the new week brings us. And take care, look after yourselves, have a nice well, I said have a nice evening, so that's that's it. Just get yourself out of the show, Vobes. Oh yeah, that's it. That's what I have to do. I forgot about that. Press the button, say goodbye. Press the button, say goodbye. Bye-bye. I did press the button. Now what?